Alright, let us hope that the saying is true, that third time is indeed the charm, because Lord have mercy, I cannot record this video again. What I'm going to do for the next few weeks here, or however long it takes, really, I don't have a schedule. I should make a schedule, but I don't have one. I want to revisit some of the first videos that I posted on this channel, which are my older camera walkthroughs, my initial thoughts, impressions of the systems, breakdowns of their functionality, and maybe some use cases of like, hey, this is how you could use a camera, whatever. That was about 2 years ago. 2.5 thereabouts. I'm not entirely sure. It was a while ago though. Lots have changed, and I think I would like to reflect that change in perspective with a newer series of videos that kind of show the growth of the channel and also exemplify my change in perspective on certain things, and in other cases, same perspective. So to kick off the series, I want to start with a camera that's very near and dear to my heart, and that is of course the Canonet 28. This is the camera that I will never sell, and there's a good reason for that, and I will get into that later. Now, I have other Canonet 28s that I will sell. This one in particular, I will not. Let's talk about the camera itself, the things that it brings to the table, and potentially how you could use it. The Canonet 28 is a scaled down version in terms of functionality of the Canonet QL17 G3. It was much cheaper, and I think it was more targeted towards a consumer audience as opposed to a more prosumer audience. The QL17 G3, of course, was the scaled down, or was the smaller iteration of the original Canonet, which was much larger. And it being smaller meant that the weight was more consolidated, it felt more sturdy, it felt more firm, easier to use, kept a lot of the same functionality, and updated a lot of the electronics. This has the bare bones of those changes and none of the fat, if you ask me. And you'll notice in the front here that there's no real markings outside of the Canon around the lens. There's no little name badge here. It's just very simple to look at, and I think it looks quite nice. On the top here, you'll notice the Canonet 28 in that signature font, which I think is fantastic. And then on the lens mount here, you will notice the alarming lack of really anything. Also, I do have a filter on this. This takes a 48mm filter, so finding a filter for this is kind of difficult. But if you take that off, it's even shorter, even less to look at. But I still think it looks magnificent. The front ring here is for focus. You have a very simple throw from just under 3 feet all the way up to infinity, or 0.8 meters to about infinity. Works for most things. You're not going to take any great macro shots, but you really don't need to with this camera. This next ring back is the ASA. Range is from 25 to 400, which is a pretty decent range, I would say. It accounts for most of the more common consumer films, those being in the range of like 100 to 400 thereabouts. On the rear here, you have your function controls, which are very, very basic. There is the auto, there is your aperture range from 2.8 to 16. The auto will click and lock in, the others do not, so it's just a sliding plastic ring there. The auto is a interesting function because if you look through the viewfinder, your galvanometer will select any range of the shutter speeds, going from 30 all the way to 600, with stops at 60, 125, and 250. At 30, I believe it's firing at about 2.8 aperture, and at the others I think it's also at 2.8, and then at 620 it stops down to 14.5. A leaf shutter like this can really only fire, the fastest it can physically fire is at 1/500th of a second because the blades have to expand outwards. I'm assuming because the aperture is at 14.5, the iris is shut down so far that it only has to move a little bit, therefore it can be a little bit faster. I don't know if that checks out physically, but I've not taken a physics class in years. That's kind of an interesting element. I believe if you fire at any of the selected apertures here, I think that all caps out at 1/30th of a second, but I could be wrong. The flash sync speed is also 1/30th of a second. If you notice the hot shoe here, that pairs very nicely with this. This is one of my favorite flash systems of all time. I just think it looks really good with the design. The only thing I would change is the orientation, because I really like the compact nature that it could have like here, but maybe that will be a future project. For now though, this is how it looks. This is the Canon Canonet D. Matches the style design here very nicely, I think. As I said, the flash sync speed is at 1/30th. This operates very simply. You just turn it on, capacitor whirs up, little window will illuminate orange when it's ready to fire, and there you go. Takes 2 AA batteries right there in the top, slide that in, good to go. Also on the top of the camera here, you have your frame counter there, you have your rewind crank, also the back door release. Just pull up on that, it opens the back door. You'll notice in the back here I have quite a lot of light seals, and that's basically because Canonets are all notorious for having a lot of issues with the light seal, and that is because having a lot of issues with light leaks, and that is because of this outer lip here. Typically, the camera back door goes into the camera, so it's more of this thing, more of a male to female. This, however, is more of a outer part there. That makes sense. So it's a little bit of a different story. Ergo, a lot of issues. So more light leaks, or the more light seals, the better typically. And you'll notice as well, unlike the QL17G3, there's no QL loading system. So you load the film by pushing the lead into here and then cranking it, and then you're good to go. The other indication as to whether or not you have the film loaded properly is this right here. This toggle will only move if the film is loading properly. That's kind of helpful. In the bottom here, you have pretty much the exact same bottom as the QL17G3 with the PX625 battery slot there, little lid, opens and closes like so, with a plastic tab that you can just pull the battery out of. And then this, of course, is the rewind button, which will disengage the take-up spool and allow you to rewind your film. Now you'll notice when I open the back and close it, that it resets to S on the frame counter, and you will have to advance it a couple of times before it reaches 0, then you're ready to fire. That's pretty much it. Like, that is the base functionality of the camera, and had my neighbors not been so disruptive, it would have taken me 2 minutes to get through all of the camera's features. It's so basic, it is so boiled down, and that's why I love it. That is genuinely why I love this camera so much, because of the limitations that it presents you with. It gives you enough to toy around with, to experiment with, but at the same time, it's not throwing so many different options at you that becomes complicated and becomes stressful. It is just a camera. This, in my experience, is the perfect backup camera. This is the one that I'll have in like my bag, and I'll have like a different stock of film loaded in than what I'm shooting with. Take it on a trip because it's so lightweight, it's so compact that it is just as easy to bring it as it is to not bring it. And I think it really over-delivers on its functionality because of how simple it is. Anyone can pick up and use it. It's quick to grab those little fleeting moments that you wouldn't get otherwise. And I'm never going to sell this camera because of those reasons, because I think it's just perfect for a lot of the photography that I enjoy doing, but also because I am the second owner of this camera. And I met the original owner, I bought it from him. It was a Craigslist deal. And yeah, he told me about when he bought it from the store. Like, he bought it brand new from the store in New York, and then I bought it from him in his garage in Chandler. So a little bit of a different venue there, But there's just something really cool to that, like knowing the full lineage of this camera. And that's something I don't really have within a lot of my other cameras here. A lot of them I picked up like from, secondhand, or I've picked up from other people that picked it up from someone else, or whatever the case may be. The fact that this is my camera and I am the second owner of it, that is just very special to me. This camera is from the 70s, the early 70s, really. And the fact that it has made it this far in life, only being owned by 2 people, is remarkable. I think the use case for this camera would be if somebody's looking for a solid backup camera. If they have like a nice 35mm SLR setup that they're using, if they have a good medium format, if someone's looking to get into rangefinder photography, this might not be the best case. I would say probably like the QL17 G3 would be better, because it provides more of the creative options and it kind of helps you ease your way into making those decisions. This, I would say, is better for those that maybe this is going to be their only stop in rangefinder photography. It still has some of the basic principles of the focusing, which I enjoy, but you don't really have a whole lot of creative control over the other components of photography, i.e. shutter speeds, aperture control, things of that nature. So because of that, I would say it's more towards people. I think it's better for people who are thinking about getting point and shoots. Literally pair this with one of these, with a flash, any kind really, and you have a metal point and shoot. It will retain its value over a set period of time, and overall it is just a much better camera system to use, in my opinion. So all that being said, I really just adore this camera, and I want to take any opportunity I can to talk about it. I'm going to shoot a roll of film through this probably today, and when I get that all developed, and then I will do a follow-up video on the experience and go from there. But for now, just wanted to make this video talking about this camera. If you have any questions about it, comment down below. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it as always, and I will catch you on the next one.